Fair warning, this is not going to be much of a review. But this is a book that's very hard to review, as I'll explain in just a moment. But first, some background. If you've been watching this channel, you'll know that I've been on a project to go back to the very beginnings of Western civilization and read my way forward from there. So, part of going back to the beginning is the ancient Babylonian and Assyrian texts. This is the Epic of Anzu, the standard Babylonian text, but it comes from the Neo-Assyrian text corpus project. So I think what's going on here is what I learned from the book Assyria from Eckhart Fromm, which is apparently Assyria and Babylon had a similar culture and a similar language. So the Babylonian literary canon was also, to a large part, the Assyrian literary canon. So, and in fact, at one point there was a large library in Nineveh that had a lot of the Babylonian classics in it, which I think is why this is part of the Neo-Assyrian Text Corpus Project. Now, this project here, the State Archives of Assyria Cuneiform Texts, I reviewed one other book from the series previously, and that was the Ludel Bel Nimiki. Hopefully that's right. It's the Babylonian Job. And if you watched my video, you know that there was the transliteration of the cuneiform text, which I just skipped over completely because I'm not a scholar and I can't read any of that. But I did read the English translation. And I also did read the translator's introduction. And despite the fact that I was skipping over much of the book, I still felt like I got good exposure to that literary work. So, after finishing that, I went through my local library database, Interlibrary Loan, to see what other books from the same series were available at my library through Interlibrary Loan. And the Epic of Anzu was another book in that same series. But in this case, there is no English translation. And I did not know this because I was just requesting the title on Interlibrary Loan. So it's got the introduction, it's got the cuneiform text, it's got the transliteration. So it's got, let me show you that here. It's got the cuneiform text here, and then it's got the transliteration of the cuneiform text, but it does not have the translation of that text, just the transliteration, and then glossary, and then indices, and sign list. So if you don't speak the original Akkadian language, this book is largely useless to you, except for the introduction, in which there's some background given to this text, although actually the introduction itself isn't that great. I'll come back to the introduction in just a moment. So, I don't know why they didn't just include the English translation in addition here. I mean, why not just put in the English translation? I mean, it's a short book. You know, this is only about 50 pages. You're not coming up against a page limit. Just put in the English translation as well. I don't know why they didn't do that. And I don't know why the other book in this series had an English translation, but this one did not. Maybe one useful thing I did get out of this book, in the introduction, it does quote from an English translation of this book. Let me see if I can find it. Of this text. Yes, I believe it's over here. This is quoting a few lines in the English translation, and then you go down to the footnote, and the translation is from a book called Before the Muses, an anthology of Akkadian literature. So I thought, oh, okay, well that sounds like that might be useful to track down. So I went to my library website and I looked it up on Interlibrary Loan, and this book is available. So I've ordered that one. Hasn't come in yet, but that is going to be one of my future reading projects. And I guess I have this book to thank for introducing me to this title, Before the Muses. But yes, this book does not have an English translation of the Anzu epic. So I'm left just with the introduction here. I was going to say the translator's introduction, but he didn't translate anything. So I'm just left with the introduction by Amar, Annus. However, I did go online and tracked down a copy of the Anzu epic online. I also watched a couple YouTube videos explaining the Anzu epic. So if anyone is interested, I'd be more than happy to share on this video here what I learned. So the story of the Anzu epic, hopefully I can remember this correctly. Anzu is this bird monster, which is originally created to be the assistant of one of the gods. I believe it's Ea, if I'm remembering correctly. Now, Ea has the Tablet of Destinies. The Tablet of Destinies also showed up in the Enuma Elish. Although, actually, the Epic of Anzu predates the Enuma Elish. So I should say maybe it shows up in the Epic of Anzu first, and later shows up in the Enuma Elish. But anyways, the Tablet of Destinies is some sort of clay tablet with, I guess, some magical incantations written on it. And whoever has the Tablet of Destinies can control the fates of all things. Or can control the material state of things. So Anzu really wants the Tablet of Destinies. He plots how to get it. The god Ea goes to take a bath, and while he's taking a bath, Anzu takes the Tablet of Destinies and then flies away with it and becomes this really all-powerful monster. So the gods then need someone to defeat Anzu, because you can't leave the Tablet of Destinies with Anzu. And they summon three other gods, one right after another. And with each one, they say, okay, you've got to go forth and defeat Anzu. And all three of the gods say, no, it's useless because Anzu has a Tablet of Destinies. So he can just say, turn into clay, and we turn into clay, and then what chance do we have fighting him? But then eventually somebody does take up the challenge, Ninurta. I think actually the gods ask his mother first, and then I don't remember how it goes from his mother to him. But anyways, Ninurta agrees to fight against Anzu. They have a fight, which I believe there's some passage saying like it was a epic fight that ranged all day. And Ninurta is trying to shoot Anzu with his arrows. But Anzu, because he has a Tablet of Destinies, just says, go back to the reed bed. So that the shaft of the arrow being shot at him just turns back into the reed and just goes back to where it came from. So none of the arrows hit their mark. Ninurta talks to his weapon. Apparently his weapon is also a character. And his weapon goes back and gets advice from the gods. And the other gods give him a game plan. They said, just attack Anzu like crazy, don't let up, hit him from behind, which Ninurta does, and then some of the feathers of Anzu fall off. Now, this next part, I have to confess, I was reading the text online, and I didn't really understand this part until I watched a YouTube video explaining it. And I'll link to that YouTube video in the description down below. It's a useful video if you're interested in any of this stuff. Apparently what's happening is Anzu said, feathers return to me. And again, he's got the Tablet of Destiny, so he can order everything to go wherever he wants it. But while he's saying this, Ninurta shoots off an arrow, which has feathers attached to the shaft of it. And then that arrow ends up killing Anzu. Ninurta comes back with the Tablet of Destinies, and he's greeted as a hero. There is some confusion about whether or not he agrees to give the Tablet of Destinies back or not. And the text is a little bit fragmented. But then Ninurta is heaped with a bunch of honors, and the gods give him a bunch of ceremonial names and talk about how great he is. It's pointed out briefly in this introduction here, in this volume, and also in some of those YouTube videos I watched, that there are a number of similarities between both the Epic of Anzu and the Enuma Elish and the Gilgamesh epic. So in the Gilgamesh epic, which I've also talked about on this channel, Gilgamesh loses the secret to eternal life when he takes a bath in the river or the lake or something, and the snake steals it. And excuse me. That's obviously a parallel to the Epic of Anzu, where the god Ea takes a bath, and then Anzu steals the Tablet of Destinies. There are even more parallels to the Enuma Elish. So in the Enuma Elish, there's also the Tablet of Destinies. In the Enuma Elish as well, the monster, the goddess Tiamat, there are two other gods which are tasked to defeat her, and who who chicken out before Marduk is the champion. Just as in the Epic of Anzu, there are, well, in this case, 3 gods who are supposed to go against Anzu, but don't. They chicken out. So I guess the Epic of Gilgamesh was written to enhance the status. Sorry, what did I say? The Enuma Elish was written to enhance the status of Marduk, and the Epic of Anzu was written to enhance the status of Ninurta. Both epics are propping up their respective deity. The Epic of Anzu apparently was the earlier one. So I guess the Enuma Elish is based on the Epic of Anzu rather than vice versa. I promised I'd come back to the introduction here. The introduction is okay, but there's a lot of interesting things in here, but it's not really an introduction to the text of the Epic of Anzu. It's interested in exploring other things. So it's talking about the contents, the Anzu epic in the context of Sumerian mythology. So then it goes off and talks about all these other myths that are also in Sumerian mythology. So we're getting more of an introduction to Sumerian mythology rather than the Anzu epic itself. I wanted this explanation to explain the Anzu epic. Sorry, I wanted this introduction to explain the Anzu epic to me. But it was intent on explaining a bunch of other stuff. The introduction even goes off for several pages talking about Seth. So remember Seth from the Bible? He was the 3rd child of Adam and Eve. Apparently the Hebrew word Seth is related to this older semantic word from Mesopotamia, which was referring to some sort of shepherd tribes and some sort of ancient wisdom, which is referenced in Josephus and some of the Jewish Apocrypha. I'd be lying if I said I fully understood all this. I think it's written with scholars in mind. But it goes on for several pages, this line of thought, and it's interesting. But again, it's not doing what I want the introduction to do, which is to introduce the Anzu epic to me. I think this is more suitable to scholars. It contains German here in the introduction without any translation. I've mentioned in a couple of my previous videos on Babylonian or Assyrian texts that there seem to be a lot of German scholars writing about it. Eckhart Fromm, if I'm not mistaken, originates from Germany or Austria. So I guess for whatever reason, if you're a scholar of ancient Akkadian, you also know German, apparently. I'll leave a link to the Amazon link to this book in the description down below, but there's no books, there's no copies currently available on Amazon anyways. There's one review by somebody who said, this is a very niche book. It's only for scholars, but as a scholar, I found it quite useful. So perhaps scholars will find it useful. I also stumbled across the Goodreads page of this book. And there was, I think, one review from somebody who said, normally I like Greek mythology better, but I found the Epic of Anzu was quite interesting. And I thought to myself, that person didn't actually read this book. Because if they had read this book, they would have realized that the Epic of Anzu was not actually translated into English in this edition. So I am going to track down that book I mentioned earlier, Before the Muses. I've already ordered it from Interlibrary Loan, so just have to wait for it to arrive. In the meantime, if anyone else knows of a suitable text for the layperson, for the casual reader, in which I can read the Epic of Anzu, let me know. Otherwise, I know this has been a weird review here, but that's my review. This book wasn't very useful for me, but it did give me an excuse to go online and research the Epic of Anzu. So I guess there you go. I learned something in the end.